I told you last week that this Sunday we will be unveiling our recommended new name and logo for the church that we are going to vote on just a few weeks. So let me take the next 10 minutes. I left y'all in suspense last week. Let me first remind you that next Sunday, May 5th, we will have a town hall right here, just like this, right after the service. We're going to dismiss and allow you to get the kids and everyone to come in. And we're going to give you a chance next week to ask any questions, to bring up any discussion about this. And then the next week, right after that, May 12th, we're going to have the vote. That shouldn't be a long business meeting because hopefully we'll get all our discussion in needed on the 5th. And so just want to let you be aware. We'll send out an email tomorrow. By the way, those who are in the nursery right now, some people are missing today out of town. We're going to put all of this, in fact, this is being recorded right now, and we're going to have, right guys, we're good, we're recording? Okay. This is being recorded right now, and all of this right now is going to be put in an email tomorrow to all of our members, so nobody misses this. And so make sure to be here the next 2 weeks, big weeks for our church. With that being said, let's talk about this rebrand. Now, before I tell you the name, let me tell you the story of this name. When I was first interviewing for the church, I scoured the internet for every picture, for every video I could find of our church online. And I was like, you guys ever been on Google Earth and just looked at how everything? So I was on Google Earth. I was just trying to figure out this building, how many buildings we had, how it all worked, and because I'd never visited here, and it left me very confused. I just could not figure out, man, how these things connect, and how does this work? Until I discovered when I first showed up here, it all made sense. Why? Because we are on a really big hill, and it doesn't all quite come through on Google Earth and on pictures. In fact, the very first thing we saw when me and Maddie pulled up is we noticed, man, this is a really, really big hill. It was the first thing that popped out for us as a church. And this is our church. You know what it looks like. We're on this big hill. So I came to find out in my first week as the pastor that our church is on the highest point. It's on the highest location in Lilburn. I thought that's a pretty neat fact. I found that out because when I came here, many of the passwords I got that were passed down to me for all the church accounts, a lot of them had this phrase in it. It said "on the hill," and I said, "What's that all about?" And I was told that's a phrase that we've used here at our church in the past. We're known as the church on a hill. And I remember thinking all the way back then, my very first week here, I thought, man, that would make a pretty cool church name. Fast forward to our trustee meetings over the last several months, and as we were discussing the idea of rebranding our church, one of our trustees blurted out a name. He said, "Church on a Hill." And that just so happened to be the name that I was going to suggest for our church. Church on a Hill. Church on a Hill. Now, let me tell you why I think this is a good name. It says, number one, where we are in our community. We're literally on a hill, as we just said. So I think a good name of a church, it says something about our community. So it says where we are in our church, in our community, but it also says who we are in our community. Matthew 5, 14 to 16 says this. It says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden." It says, "Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This is actually, we had our series earlier this year on the Sermon on the Mount, and this actually picks up right where we left off in that sermon. Jesus says to the church, he says, "You are the light of the world." And he gives this illustration of a town or a city on a hill. And the idea is when you're traveling to a town, they didn't have GPS like we do now, and you're looking for the town, if the town is built up on a hill, like Jerusalem, for example, is, then from a far distance you can see the light, and it can guide you towards that light. The idea is that the church is to be a light to the world around us, to our community around us. So I think this name, it communicates that. It communicates where we are. We're on a hill physically, literally, but also we want to be a light for Lilburn. So it talks about where we are in a community. It talks about who we are. It has that scriptural idea of what we want to be in our community. But I like this name also because it says who we were. And it says who we still want to be. Of course, our current name is Calvary Baptist Church. What is Calvary? It's a hill. Calvary is the hill where Jesus died. And I think that being church on a hill, what the idea is, we want to honor the past. We want to honor essentially by saying, hey, we're still all about the hill. Our mission here is to be a light for Lilburn. Yes, this not only does this name describe where we are and who we are, but this name continues to point people to the cross of Calvary, just as we always have. I had, by the way, this name, what I'm sharing with y'all, I've sat down with just about 20 or so of our leaders in our church before I came to you about this, and I got their input. Some of you have asked me that, where did this come from, and who have we talked to, and got input from many of our leaders. And one of them asked me this question when I told them the name, and they heard we're taking Baptist out of the name. They said, Pastor Matt, I just have a question. They said, I know another church who took Baptist out of the name, and, they started to change some other things too. They said one thing in particular, they said, this is my question. They said, when they took Baptist out of the name, they also decided they didn't want to have any more crosses in their church. They said, the cross, it offends people. It's bloody. They said, are you also going to take out the cross? And I said, listen, I want to be very clear. If it's in the Bible, it's not going anywhere. I said, look, we, just as we always have, I said, if it's in the Bible, we're going to proclaim it loudly and boldly until Jesus comes back. Now, of course, the name Baptist, there's nothing wrong with the name Baptist, but it's not in the Bible, is it? If we're going to count John the Baptist, then we can have that conversation. But there's nothing scriptural about having the name Baptist in a church. But listen, the cross of Calvary, that's what the Bible's all about. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God unto salvation to all who believe. Listen, we're not a light. We can't be a light for Lilburn as a church set on a hill if we're pointing people to us, but only for pointing people to the cross of Calvary. Now let's talk about this logo and this brand just for a minute. I have a few other slides. First, I want to say this. It takes, most people don't realize this, it takes a lot of research to have a good brand, to have a good logo. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of planning for the name, for all these things. Some people have asked me, why don't we all just get together and as I've talked to some of our leaders, why don't we just kind of pick out names, throw them in a hat, and then vote on the best one? But what that doesn't take into account is the fact of what to really have a name that's effective and have a brand that's effective. It's strategic. There's a lot of intentional design and research that goes into it. And I know this because my wife is literally a branding expert. That's what she does for work. She's created logos and she's created websites for small businesses, for churches in particular. And I've learned a lot from her about branding. The idea of just coming up with a name that we all like the best, it's like as if we were building a new building and saying, hey, why don't we just all come up with a blueprint that we like and put it in a hat and then we'll all vote on the best blueprint. We wouldn't do that, right? Because we would say, well, hey, this doesn't take into account the strategy, the design that goes into something, the expertise it takes and the research to making something like this. So as I show you this, we're not going to get into all of what's behind this logo, obviously, but I just do want to point out, as you can see on here, we have the C and we have the H, which represents church and hill. It also starts with church as well. As you can see, we have the hill that's baked in this logo, as we are church on a hill, and you can see the hill leads into the cross of Calvary. This logo tells our story. As we discussed, what we want people, when people see our logo, when they hear our name, they're gonna feel certain things. They're gonna make judgments about our church right away. So as we talked about, what do we want people to feel when they see it? And so what we chose, what Madison came up with, is a color palette that is inspired by a sunrise. What do we want people to feel when they see our logo? We want them to see and think of new life, that they can find new life here in Christ. Think of what you feel when you see a beautiful sunrise. You feel hope. We think of the beauty of God and our Creator and the beauty of the gospel. And one of my favorite verses in Lamentations says, His mercies are new every morning, and the sunrises remind us of that. So these are kind of the colors that are the idea behind some of the colors we chose. I have a few extra pictures just to kind of show what the brand could look like in action, if you will, in our church. This isn't what our lobby is necessarily going to look like exactly, but just give you an idea of what it could look like around our church and on some other. So here's just a few examples of what it could look like on the website, for example, a coffee cup. So just a few examples for you of just to give you an idea, put it into action, of what it could look like. And then finally, I've dreamed for years of having a name and having a logo. I've always thought this would be a cool idea that could be used to share the gospel. See, Jesus created us in a perfect world where we lived in perfect harmony with Him. He created us in a perfect world. We lived in perfect harmony with Him, but we rebelled, breaking our connection with Jesus, bringing brokenness into our world. Jesus intervened in our story. He humbly entered our world, being born as a human. And then Jesus paid the penalty for our sins, sacrificing Himself on the cross. He climbed the hill of Calvary for our salvation. And all who believe on Jesus are reunited with Him. But not only that, but then we're empowered as a light. But then we're empowered as a light, as a church, as a city set on a hill for Jesus. So we've created, when Maddie came up with the logo, but we also created this as a way, again, to be able to share the story of the gospel through our logo itself. We have some cards in the back that we're going to pass out. Can we get those, Brother Frank, Brother Dave? Thank you. Y'all can just go ahead and pass those out right now. And just to show you as a tool, as an example of what it could look like, to be able to use this logo, were we to vote for this name, to be able to share the gospel with others. As you receive the card, you could see that it has each of these steps on the front, so you could show people, and on the back, it has what you can say, what I just read to you with verses as well. Again, just to give you a sample of how we could use this logo to share the gospel. We want to come up with a name, with a logo, again, that not only tells people who we are as a church, but who Jesus is, why we exist. With the name Church on a Hill, I really believe we can be a light for Lilburn for years to come, like we've never experienced before. They're passing those cards out. Again, next week, we're going to have a town hall. You might have questions. You might have concerns. We're going to have that meeting next week right after service for you to bring up any questions, concerns, discussion you have before we vote on May the 12th for that vote for this rebrand. So please be here and please be in prayer.